Good afternoon. Welcome. You're listening live to Heart to Heart, a program which aims to help you understand and to become your loving self. KMET 1490 AM ABC Radio Live. I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist. And I'm here along with my business partner, best friend, and colleague, Dr. Robert Jaffe, who is going to offer us a program about codependency, addictions, trauma, and impact of all of that on relationship.
I am.
Dr. Robert Jaffe, welcome. Welcome to your show.
Welcome to my show. Thank you. Thank you.
So, codependency, the disease of lost selfhood.
The disease of lost selfhood. Yes.
The biggest addictions that human being has ever seen,
It is.
themselves.
It is. It is by far the biggest addiction, which is it's an addiction really to somebody else.
Exactly.
Tell me what you want, and I will give it to you, and so people really don't understand what the difference is between codependency and just wanting to please your partner. And when people ask me that, I say, well, everyone wants to please their partner if they like, and certainly if they love their partner, and you want that your partner to be happy, so you want to please them. So wanting to please your partner doesn't mean that you're codependent.
Right.
But when wanting to please your partner becomes so important that you will do anything, including not pleasing yourself, and including giving up your authentic feelings in order to please your partner, then you're stepping over the line.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And so that's so what happens when we step over the line and we give up our authentic true selves in order to please our partner, we become dependent on them. And if our partner is also doing the same thing with us, then they are dependent on us, dependent on them for what? For our happiness, right? So if we are dependent on each other for our happiness, what happens when something occurs in life and we're not happy? So if something happens, let's say I'm in a codependent relationship, and I'm at work, and the boss is unfair and chews me out in front of the other employees, and I feel really upset, and I go home, and I'm not happy because I'm upset with my boss, and my partner looks at me and, how come you're not happy? And I tell her the story of being upset with my boss, and I'm really upset. She then has the choice of either taking it personally,
Yeah.
And feeling really upset because I'm not I can't bring a happy Robert home to her. So she feels like it's her job now to make me happy. And since I'm unhappy and my unhappiness has nothing to do with her, when she tries to make me happy, she's going to be frustrated because she can't make me happy. I have to do that for myself. I have to understand and put into perspective what happened at work, and come to the conclusion that even that my boss did something that I didn't like, but that I don't have to suffer right now as a result of it. That is up to me. That is not up to her to tell me that. Now she can tell me that, but it's really up to me to accept that that's the truth. And if I don't accept that, then I'm going to stay unhappy, and she's going to still feel like I've abandoned her because the contract that we have with each other is a codependent contract where I'm responsible for her happiness and she's responsible for my happiness. And since I'm not happy, she's failing in her responsibility to make me happy.
Well, I can see that absolutely. Then again, there is another part, another piece to that. And the other piece is that when you, Robert, unhappy, you come home, if you project your unhappiness onto her, then what?
Well, that's another part of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's say I'm unhappy, and I'm unhappy because my boss did this, but that happened 6 hours ago, and ever since my boss did it, I'm carrying that with me. But because it was 6 hours ago, a lot of things have happened, and I've interacted with a lot of people and done a lot of work since then. But I haven't resolved my issue with my boss chewing me out. But I've forgotten about it consciously. I could remember it if it was brought to my attention, but my wife wasn't there. She doesn't know that it happened. So I come home and I'm in a bad mood. And if I'm in a bad mood, then I can project that onto her. And I can, and then if I project it onto her, or even if I don't project it onto her, but I'm just not in a happy mood, she's going to see that something's wrong. And since it's her job to make me happy, she's going to feel as though she's failed. And then if she's failed, then she's going to be unhappy. And now it's my job to make her happy, but I can't make her happy because I'm unhappy. So now what?
No, that's when the fight starts.
That's when the fighting starts, right? And the fighting can be over. And I've had a client, maybe the client's listening right now and will laugh, but I had a client. They had a big fight. He had a big fight with his wife over the fact that he threw the garbage in the wrong garbage bin. One is for recycling and the other is for garbage, and he put the garbage in the one that should have been for recycling, and they had a big fight over it. You know, because if I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times that doesn't go in that. You know, and why do you keep doing it? And he said, I forgot. He said, sue me. And she goes, you forget that, you forget everything. And now they're
Yeah.
off to the races.
Exactly. Yes. Right. And projections sometimes, I mean, not sometimes, take that back. Projections are so, subconscious, and they happen even when we don't realize it.
Well, because the subconscious, by definition, is below the level of awareness.
Right.
Right. We have three minds. We have our conscious mind, which is where most people think that everything is happening.
Exactly.
But actually it isn't. The subconscious mind, where the majority of things are happening. And then even below that is the unconscious mind. We don't talk much about that in our program, and I don't discuss it much with my clients, because the unconscious mind is always working to resolve issues, and we don't even know that it's there. So the subconscious and the unconscious mind are both responsible for handling millions of bodily processes that are continuously going on inside our body to keep our body functioning. So what I discuss mostly with my clients is the subconscious mind, because in the unconscious mind, if you say something to the person will say, no, I don't think that, or I don't feel that way, and you can't really go anywhere with it because it's too deeply hidden. The subconscious mind usually is when you say something to the person relates to it. So you can say, oh, you've got a frown on your face. Are you feeling sad? And the person may not have been aware that they had the frown on their face until you noticed it and said something to them. And then they will say, oh, actually, no, I'm not feeling sad. I didn't realize I had a frown on my face.
I remember one time, not too long ago, my daughter told me, Mom, why are you upset? And I said, honey, I'm not upset.
Mm-hmm.
She said, Mom, your face telling me, that you're upset. You're frowning. You're not talking. You're just, And I said, really? I even didn't realize that I was, showing that I was
Mm-hmm.
upset.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I was actually smiling, and I thought I had
Mm-hmm.
a smiley face on. But then
Mm-hmm.
again, she told me, Mom, what's wrong? Why are you upset? And then I went into the bathroom and I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, my God, she's right. My
Mm-hmm.
face says to everybody that I'm upset about something, whatever. And then, it got me. I said, oh my God. And if she wouldn't have told me, I wouldn't have recognized it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. So, and that's the subconscious. So there was something going on subconsciously for you. It doesn't even mean that you were upset, but maybe you learned to wear that face for a particular reason, and that
Right.
was like an automatic face that you put on without thinking about it, even though you weren't really upset at that moment. The subconscious is very powerful, and the subconscious is always operating. Um, Going back to codependence, addictions, trauma, and relationships, which is what the program is about. So, codependence, we call it addiction to another person, right? We call it addiction to um, to another person, and believing that it's our responsibility to make them happy and it's their responsibility to make us happy. So with addictions, let's say chemical addictions, let's talk about drugs, marijuana, cocaine, alcohol, those type of substances. Uh, those things do not make us happy. When we imbibe, now a lot of people, when I'm saying that, they're going to go, oh well, I feel pretty happy when I'm high, and I say, well, think about it. Have you ever been happy without those substances? And is there a difference between your feeling state when you're happy without those substances and when you are, quote, happy with those substances? And I believe, because I struggled with addictions for a long time, and I also work with addicts for many years, still do. I believe that addictions make us high and give us relief from unhappiness, because we're high, we're in a different, we're out of our normal feeling state. So if we're sad, if we're disappointed, if we're upset, we're not there when we get high, and so we get relief from those feeling states, and we mistake that for happiness. So we just got notice. We're going to have to take a little short break. We hope you'll stay with us, and please feel free to join our discussion. Give us a call, 951-922-3532. We'll see you in a moment. Did you know that addictions
Beginning at 3 o'clock p.m. Join us. Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Heart to Heart program at KMET 190 AM ABC News Radio Live. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here, offering a program on codependency, addictions, trauma, all impacting relationships. And we would like to hear from you and your experiences, your stories. That's what we are interested in. And we are here to help you to answer questions and concerns that you may have. Our phone number here is 951-922-3532. And you may also visit us at our Facebook, Heart to Heart Counseling, and also at YouTube channel, heart-to-heart.online/YouTube. We thank you for spending this hour with us, and please introduce the program to those that you believe they can benefit from. So thank you for that, Dr. Jaffe.
Yes,
You were
so
talking about
we were,
your topic of interest.
yeah, so I was saying that that people confuse being high with happiness,
Right.
right? And what I say is not that there's anything wrong with getting high. I mean, I think it's okay to get high, you know, as long as it's not problematic in your life and it's occasional to have a drink or to have a a toke of marijuana. I think it's okay, but it's not the same when you get high. It's not the same as feeling happy. It's a different feeling happy is a different experience. And we're talking about addictions and trauma. What I've learned from having been from having worked in an addictions recovery center for 24 years and running groups and working with the residents and the staff, what I've learned is that trauma is I'm not going to say ubiquitous. It's not like with everybody who has an addiction has been traumatized, but I'm going to say it's widespread. Um, the majority of people who suffer with addictions, and especially people who suffer with addictions and have trouble getting clean. Now we're talking more about chemical addictions because you don't get clean, so to speak, from a codependent addiction. Um, but even like a process addiction, which is codependency and gambling. Gambling would be a process addiction. Sex can be a process addiction where you're changing your feeling state so that you can feel better. There's nothing wrong again with gambling or sex, but again, if you're using that a lot in order to escape from the stress of your everyday life, um, you're going in the wrong direction as far as making your life better. And we were talking about love in our last hour. You're not moving in a loving direction toward yourself when you're using substances and process addictions uh, continuously in order to make your life bearable,
Exactly.
right? So what I said at the break was that is that people confuse being high with being happy. And if you have had a lot of trauma in your life, then you are probably suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Um, and if you want to understand more about that, there's just tons and tons of books written about it. Um, the DSM-5, which is the diagnostic manual for mental health clinicians, has definitions of trauma and what PTSD is, and gives a lot of information on that. But simply put, PTSD means that you have had trauma in your life, and the trauma, the emotions, and the experience of being traumatized has not been integrated into your life and therefore isn't resolved. So it feels to the person who's suffering with PTSD as if it's still happening. The trauma is still happening. Now, it doesn't mean that if you've been traumatized, let's say as a child or as an adult, that you're walking around feeling the same that you did when you were traumatized. But what it means is that if you've been traumatized and you haven't resolved it, that your base level of happiness is probably impacted. You're not probably as happy as you could be, and also that you're subject to getting triggered.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that oftentimes when people are suffering of PTSD, uh, a word, a smell, a gesture, a facial expression, um,
An image.
car backfiring. What did you say?
Image.
an image,
An image, yeah.
yeah, yeah, can trigger you, and then you do feel similar to how you felt when you were being traumatized. Trauma means that you feel in that moment like you're going to die. And people say, well, that doesn't seem to fit because I didn't feel like I was going to die when I was a kid, even though my parents fought a lot, you know. And some people tell me that I was traumatized because I was there when they fought, but I didn't think that I was going to die. And I would say, no, you didn't think that you were going to die, but you felt scared,
Right.
right? And fear is there inside of the human being to let them know that their life is not safe at that moment. You may intellectually know that your parents fighting isn't going to make you die in that moment, but it becomes very scary when especially when you're young and your parents are fighting, because you don't know what's going to happen, and you also don't know how it's going to affect you.
Right.
So you can easily become traumatized. And once again, if that trauma is not worked through, meaning that you don't talk to someone about it, and that person doesn't help you understand the feelings, so that those feelings can be a part of you and not separate from you, that can be triggered at any moment, then you are still carrying that trauma with you, and that's what PTSD is. So how does this affect codependency? How does trauma and codependency go along? Codependency, we're saying, is a disease of lost selfhood, which means that you have been traumatized. Anytime that you have been um, traumatized, you have sort of left your body, and you are no longer feeling safe in your body. Codependency is the state where you don't feel like you are your authentic true self. You're only okay so long as the person around you is telling you that you're okay.
Correct.
Yeah. So how does one resolve codependency? The first part, of course, is recognizing that you have codependency. We've talked a lot about that in previous shows. The other thing about codependency is, and I'm going to say today, that codependency is actually about three levels, or three layers of recovery. Um, the first level is what happens when we're traumatized. And when we're traumatized, we often become numb.
Mhm.
Um, we say that trauma is about fear, and it's about the fight or flight syndrome, right? So if you're traumatized, you either want to fight off the person or persons or whoever it is that's attacking you. So you develop a lot of adrenaline and other chemicals that make you stronger, so you can fight off whoever's attacking you. Or you have that same feeling where you're now strong enough that you can run fast and run away from it. What people don't usually recognize is that their fight or flight is only two-thirds of it. The other part of the fight or flight syndrome is what we call freeze.
Right.
And Peter Levine wrote a number of books about trauma, and one of the books is called Waking the Tiger, and he analogizes trauma to waking the tiger, and the tiger then goes after, let's say, a bunny rabbit or an antelope, and the bunny rabbit may freeze, or the antelope may freeze and fall on the ground. And what that does is that distracts the tiger. So the tiger then sees the bunny rabbit that he's going after for lunch, or the antelope that he's going after for dinner or a late night snack, and he sees that happening, and then he goes, "Oh well, I don't. They're not, now they're dead. I don't have to worry about chasing them." So they get distracted, and then the bunny rabbit and the antelope get up quickly and run away. That's the freeze syndrome part of the fight or flight. So what happens in codependence is the first area of codependence that in healing is helping the person move out of the numbness that they have from the freeze cycle of the PTSD, of the post-traumatic stress disorder. When that happens, as they start coming out of the numbness, they usually go into a lot of pain and confusion about what's going on. And that is what we would call the first layer that has to be lifted off in order to heal codependence, is helping the person unfreeze and helping the person understand the pain and confusion, which is what people have when they're traumatized.
So, what are some of the ways, or let's say one way of getting people out of the freeze?
Right. So the first thing is I'm going to talk now from the profession with the professional hat. As a therapist, what I do is I help them recognize that they're frozen, which is again subconscious.
Right.
So bringing things that are subconscious to consciousness gives us a new view of it. Just what you were saying before, it was a perfect example about how your face looked to your daughter. You didn't have that view of your face. You thought your face was bright and happy. Your daughter said it wasn't. You looked in the mirror and you realized it wasn't. That's the same in all healing, which is bringing to consciousness exactly what's going on. So the person has to recognize that they're frozen. If as the therapist, I'm watching the person, and if the person is telling me a story about something that happened, and I'm watching them, I'm going to notice how animated they are. I'm going to notice whether their eyes are fixed or dilated. I'm going to notice whether they're blinking or they're not blinking. I'm going to notice how they're breathing, whether they're breathing quickly or shallowly or slowly. I'm going to notice all these things, and I can then bring it to their attention. Check in with your breathing right now. Now, you don't have to be a therapist to do this. If you notice that the person's telling you a story and you notice that there's something that they're getting very, very excited, they may be recalling something that was traumatizing to them.
Right.
You can say, well, check in with your breathing and see if you can just notice with the way you're breathing, and you don't have to do anything, just notice it, and if you notice your breathing, then and you like the way you're feeling, then you can keep breathing that way. If you don't like the way you're feeling, then maybe we can experiment with a new way of breathing. Maybe you can breathe in slowly to the count of 3, hold it to the count of 3, and then exhale to the count of 3. So that's helping the person to change the freeze cycle, and also to help the person to move out of the PTSD.
Well, thank you for that.
Sure. This is like the very, very beginning of helping the person to deal with the trauma. You haven't really helped them deal with the trauma, but you've helped them recognize that they are experiencing traumatic symptoms right now. Once the person is out of out of the traumatic symptoms, then the second layer of healing in any kind of addiction, including codependency, is recognizing what you're doing to hide from the pain. So in a codependent relationship, being able to let the person know that they're depending on the other person for their happiness is the beginning of telling them that they have an addiction. When people come in with all kinds of addictions, they come in, like I mentioned before, drugs and alcohol. They can be legal drugs. They can be illegal drugs. They can be, people can even get addicted to extreme sports, motorcycle racing, skydiving, things like that, that take them out of their normal feeling state and bring them to a high.
Right.
mountain climbing, all of those type of things. So, uh, so if that person is doing that, and 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 let's say if it's a chemical addiction like drugs and alcohol, and they are in denial that they have the addiction, the next step is to help them recognize what addictions are and the effect that addictions have on you, both physiologically and emotionally and spiritually. What do addictions do to you? And how do addictions harm you? Because most people who have addictions don't recognize that they have addictions, and they don't recognize that the addictions that they have are even harming them.
Well, that is so true, and that's, I guess, one of the most important part of the issue here, that people's denial of the reality,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I do have some of those clients, like for example, one of them I was talking to last night, and then asked him to describe his feelings when he's socially drinking, like it's
Mm-hmm.
just. And then he said, well, I'm doing it so that I can get a momentum relief.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, where did you learn that term? He said, no, nowhere. I just said it.
Mm-hmm.
And we processed that. And I know we are at the commercial break, but he was describing a characteristics of an addict,
That's correct.
and he didn't
Exactly.
realize
No,
that.
of course not.
Yeah,
Yeah. And oftentimes, if you're too quick to tell the person they're addicted, you lose them as a client, because
exactly.
they say, oh, this person's crazy, or this person doesn't know me.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So let's talk more about this after our commercial break.
we absolutely will. Relationships. And so,
And our phone number is 951-922-3532.
great.
Sorry for my tardiness.
10 seconds is fine. So, yeah. So let's see, where did we leave off? We left off talking about.
I was talking about my client that, he said that he was socially drinking. And I asked him why he was drinking socially and what was it for him. And then he said, well, it's a momentum relief. And then I said, okay. So I made a note of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, so what is that moment of relief? And then he said, well, we drink to feel good. So I wrote that, right? And then he said a few other things as he was processing, and I really helped him to stay in that moment so he can process it. And then I reviewed all the characteristics, everything he said, and I said, if I want to sum that up for him, what does he know about all these lines that he said,
Mm-hmm.
And he said, oh my God, I'm describing an addict. I said, do you think you are one? And he said, no, I'm not one. I said, so okay, I don't know. I mean, he described them. I didn't describe those terms. I didn't bring those terms. And he's an intelligent guy, So, and he was familiar with those terms. Otherwise, he wouldn't say them. So that was a big shock to him. That was a huge, that he thought that, social drinking or, social, smoking or things like that, he's not an addict.
Right. Right.
And he still, of course, denied it. He still didn't believe it. But the fact that, he was able to say those, characteristics about himself, I think that was, a big moving forward process in his therapy.
Right.
Even
right.
though he said, oh, no, I don't mean it that way. And then so he started to, again, going, against himself and all of
Right.
that.
Right.
Which I can understand that it was very hard for him.
Well, it is hard.
Yeah.
It is hard. We want to think highly of ourselves, and most of us deserve to think highly of ourselves.
Right.
But we have ego defenses. An ego defense is we've talked in the past about the two parts to the human being. The human is the ego. The being is the spirit. So what is the ego? The ego is that part of the human being that that carries inside of it a desire for survival. And also, I mean, it's not just that. The ego also mediates uh, between the subconscious mind and what we would call the supraconscious mind, or they used to call it the parent, adult, and child, right? So the ego is the adult, and the child and the parent are the two parts of our minds that often are in conflict. Going back to addictions, when people say I'm an addict, they are admitting that they don't have total control over their lives. And that doesn't sit well with the ego, because the ego wants to believe that I am in control of my life and I choose what is good for me, and I know what's good for me, and I always choose what's good for me. And when you tell somebody that they are an addict, which implies that there's a part of their life that is out of control, their ego doesn't like it.
Right.
So they go back into denial, and that's what you observe with your
Right.
with your client. So the first layer is of healing, we've talked about, and that's the numbness, the pain, and confusion that people have when they've been traumatized. The second layer is about addictions and compulsions and other disorders that people create within themselves. And when I say create, you're not consciously creating it, but your subconscious mind finds ways of helping you deal with the pain of the trauma that you've experienced in your life. So when your client said to you, I get relief, I would say he's accurate.
Yes.
Addictions do give us relief from stress. They give us relief from emotional pain. Now, if you've been traumatized in your life, and certainly if you've been traumatized a lot, and you come from what we would call a dysfunctional family system, where trauma is there a lot, and the trauma from a dysfunctional family system is people lie, people cheat each other, people aren't honest, people do say things that are hurtful to each other. Um, this is all stuff that comes from being in a dysfunctional family. These are all traumatizing to people, because our authentic true self loves the truth, and our authentic true self wants to be truthful. And actually, we do have to learn how to lie. We don't come out of the womb knowing how to lie. We come out of the womb being our authentic true selves. And if we don't feel like we have to lie in order to protect ourselves, we are honest and we do say the truth. If we come into a dysfunctional family and our parents don't like our truth, or we're being too truthful, uh, one of my favorite authors is David Hawkins, and he says, whenever you plan on telling the truth, plan on leaving town right afterward. And so it's not just in a dysfunctional family that the truth is unwelcome. It's often in society that the truth is unwelcome. But going back to dysfunctional family, if you are raised in a dysfunctional family and the truth is unwelcome, you learn how to lie. And the biggest lie that you tell yourself is that that doesn't hurt. So people who struggle with addictions try to numb their pain and try to make it true that it doesn't hurt. So if they get some bad news, they will use their addiction so that it doesn't bother them. If they get some good news, they may still use their addiction because they want to celebrate. But the addiction really is about um, alleviating the pain. It's alleviating the pain. It makes you feel better while the addiction is working. It makes you feel better than being in pain. And if you come from a dysfunctional family and you've been in emotional pain most of your life, Getting relief from the pain is a step up, but it's still not the same as happiness. So if you are able to get relief from the pain, but you're not happy, what's missing? And what's missing is your connection with your true, loving, authentic, true self. Your loving, authentic, true self. That connection, which is who you are deep down, which is who we all are as we come into the world, is missing because you had to adapt to the family that you were in order to feel like you were going to be given enough to survive that family, enough love, although that's pretty much not in great quantity in dysfunctional families, but certainly enough food and enough shelter and enough help to get you through, so that you didn't, because you couldn't take care of yourself. At least I can survive this. And people come from that dysfunctional family, and they don't know that it's possible to even be happy. So what they do is they settle for what is possible, and that's usually the dysfunction, which is the addiction. Right. Underneath the second layer, once we have identified the addictions, once the person is willing to admit that they're an addict, that they have an addiction, then the real healing, which is the third level, can come underneath that. And that's all the stuff that's fueling the numbness and the addictions. And that's what we call the original pain work. In psychology, we say it's the original pain work because it's about the origin of the pain and how that shaped our view of the world, and how it shaped our view of ourselves and other people. We all got messages about ourselves from our parents. I'm using our parents as generically as our caregivers. Some people were raised by people other than their parents, but they were parent figures to them. And so when we have parents who aren't able to give us a validation for our authentic true self, and when we adapt ourselves to what they need us to be, then we have our adapted self, and our adapted self is the equivalent of our codependent self. Underneath that is the pain of why we had to adapt to begin with.
And why, and that's where we get to the concept of where is my authentic true self? Who am I as my authentic true self? What would my life would have looked like if I would have operated as my own authentic true self? And then how to go by get that back.
Right. And that is what we call the work of recovery.
Yeah.
Recovery is people think of recovery usually in terms of recovery from drugs and alcohol. And that, of course, is accurate. But really, the deeper meaning of recovery is the recovery of our authentic true selves. And when we're living in a false codependent reality, we're usually not aware that we even have an authentic true self, let alone that we're not in touch with or embodying that part of ourselves.
The good news is that we all have our own authentic true self.
We do.
And I hope that everybody can identify with that and bring that part of ourself out, because that's the most beautiful part of who we are.
Right? That's yeah. Someone said to me, you don't have to envy other people, and you don't have to try to be like other people. He said, they say be yourself, because that's what the world needs. The world needs more people who are their authentic true selves.
Exactly. And with that, we invite you to please join us next week, Thursday at 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock. And until then, don't forget that all you need is love.
Love, love, love.
Have a wonderful week.
Okay, see you next week. Bye-bye.